AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me after she caused a major incident at my wedding. I, 32F, am married, and my sister, Lila, 28F, has always had a bit of a chaotic streak. Our relationship has been strained at times, but I've always tried to be patient and supportive. I'm sharing this now because I need an outside perspective on whether I overreacted. About 6 months ago, I got engaged to my now husband, Ryan, 34M. From the very beginning, Lila made it clear she intended to have a big influence on the wedding. She wanted to be heavily involved in planning, from the decor to the guest list, and while I tried to accommodate her input, it often crossed into controlling behavior. She would complain if her ideas weren't used, and sometimes tried to guilt-trip me into making changes that suited her rather than the overall theme Ryan and I had chosen. The tipping point came a few weeks before the wedding. Ryan and I had planned a relatively small ceremony, about 80 people, with a modest reception. Lila had a different vision. She wanted an extravagant event and kept pushing for an extension of the guest list, which I had already finalized. I repeatedly explained that we couldn't invite more people due to budget and space constraints, but she continued to send messages to various friends and family members, asking them to make sure they were invited and implying that I was excluding them deliberately. A week before the wedding, Ryan's aunt, who I had specifically not invited due to space issues, showed up with her husband and insisted on attending. Lila had apparently promised them spots without checking with me or Ryan. I was livid, but I decided to try to keep things calm, thinking it was better to avoid confrontation so close to the wedding day. Ryan was stressed, but tried to stay neutral, which frustrated me because I felt like he should be supporting my decisions. The wedding itself was disastrous in ways I didn't anticipate. During the reception, Lila got upset because the seating arrangement did not place her in a position of honor. She made a scene, loudly complaining about where she was sitting, attracting attention from our guests. Later, she went to the dessert table and, apparently in a fit of frustration, spilled a large cake onto the floor and then tried to blame it on a waiter. Security had to escort her out, and she refused to leave quietly. I had to step in, apologize to our guests, and Ryan was forced to calm everyone down while I managed the chaos. It was humiliating, and I felt betrayed and embarrassed. I cried for hours after the wedding while Ryan tried to console me. After the wedding, Lila sent me a text claiming she had been misunderstood and that I was being unreasonable by being upset with her. I tried to have a calm conversation with her, explaining why her behavior was unacceptable, but she refused to take responsibility. She accused me of not appreciating her efforts and overreacting, saying I was trying to control everything and that Ryan and I had made a mistake by getting married without considering her feelings. Fast forward to now, Lila recently asked if she could stay at our apartment for a few weeks because she was going through a tough time. She just broke up with her boyfriend and needed family support. She assumed that because we were married, we would automatically welcome her in. I told her I wasn't comfortable with it, given how she had behaved at the wedding and the level of chaos she had caused. She responded by accusing me of being selfish and cruel, saying I was punishing her for something that had happened months ago and that families are supposed to help each other during tough times. I understand that people need support after a breakup, and normally I would try to help, but her presence would likely cause significant stress for Ryan and me. We have a small apartment, and I am worried that allowing her to stay here would lead to tension, arguments, or worse incidents like what happened at the wedding. I offered to help her find a hotel or other accommodations, but she dismissed the idea and insisted that family should come first. This has escalated into a larger family debate. Some relatives have sided with her, saying I'm being unreasonable and mean for refusing to let my sister stay with me after a breakup. Others understand my concerns and agree that she caused enough trouble at the wedding to justify setting boundaries. My parents, who have always been close to Lila, are pressuring me to forgive and forget and let her stay, saying it's time to mend the family bond. I don't want to permanently cut her out, but I also feel that she has shown a repeated pattern of disrespect and entitlement. I want to maintain a relationship with her, but I also need to protect my marriage and our home. I've suggested alternative ways to support her, like checking in daily, helping her find counseling, or providing financial help for temporary housing, but she insists that none of that is sufficient. She says that if I loved her, I would simply open my home. I'm torn because on one hand, I want to be supportive, and on the other hand, I feel I have a right to protect my home and my mental well-being. Ryan is fully on board with not having her stay here, and he supports whatever boundaries I set, but I feel guilty that I might be seen as the bad sister by my extended family. I know boundaries are important, but I also know family conflicts are complicated. I don't want to escalate this further. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister stay with me after the chaos she caused at my wedding. Even though she claims she needs support after a breakup, I feel like I'm protecting my marriage and my sanity, but the family backlash makes me second-guess myself. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my cousin move in after she lost her job and apartment. I, 36F, have a cousin, Lily, 32F, who has always been a little impulsive and struggles with planning ahead financially. Growing up, we were close, and over the years we have remained in touch, though our lifestyles are quite different. I have a steady job, a mortgage on a modest 3-bedroom house, and a fairly predictable routine. I budget carefully, save for emergencies, and generally avoid taking on financial risks that could threaten my stability. A few weeks ago, Lily lost her job. She had been working at a boutique marketing firm, and the company downsized unexpectedly. Around the same time, she also received an eviction notice because she had fallen behind on rent. Panicked, she called me, saying she had nowhere to go and asking if she could move in with me temporarily while she figured out her next steps. At first, I was sympathetic because I understood that losing both a job and a home simultaneously would be overwhelming. However, I immediately realized that letting her move in would be difficult for several reasons. My house is not large. It's a 3-bedroom with 1 room used as a home office. I also have a cat, and my space is carefully organized to fit my work-from-home setup and lifestyle. Adding another adult to the household would disrupt my routines, my personal space, and potentially my mental health. I told Lily that I could not let her move in long term, but I offered other ways to help. I suggested helping her find a short-term rental or Airbnb, assisting her with job applications, contributing to a security deposit, and helping her search for more affordable housing options. I made it clear that I wanted to support her, but my home was not an option. Lily reacted badly. She insisted that living with me was the only solution and claimed it would be temporary. She argued that she had no other family nearby who could help, and that friends were either unavailable or unwilling to host her. I explained that my refusal wasn't about not caring for her or her situation, but about the practical implications of having her move in. I pointed out that living together under stressful circumstances could strain our relationship, disrupt my daily life, and create long-term tension. Over the next week, Lily continued pressuring me. She called several times a day, sometimes multiple times within a few hours, explaining how stressful her situation was and implying that I could make things easier by letting her stay with me. She also began guilt-tripping me, saying that a real family member would help no matter the inconvenience. I tried to calmly reiterate my position and remind her of the alternatives I had suggested, but she dismissed them as insufficient and claimed I was being selfish. The situation has caused a lot of stress for me. I started feeling anxious whenever my phone rang and began dreading interactions with Lily. I also realized that letting her move in, even temporarily, could extend beyond the few weeks she promised, given her current lack of stable income and limited savings. I want to help her get back on her feet, but I also know that compromising my own home and mental health could create resentment and potentially harm our relationship. Family members have weighed in as well. Some say I should just make the sacrifice because family helps each other in times of need, while others agree that my concerns are valid and that allowing her to move in could create long-term stress and conflict. I feel guilty because I love Lily and want to support her, but I also feel strongly that setting boundaries is necessary. Eventually, Lily found a friend who agreed to let her stay temporarily, but she continues to reach out to me frequently, venting about her difficulties and implying that I could have done more. I continue to offer advice, help with job applications, and small financial support when possible, but she seems dissatisfied with anything that does not involve living with me. I feel torn because I want to help her and maintain our relationship, but I also need to protect my home, routines, and mental well-being. So, AITA for refusing to let my cousin move in after she lost her job and apartment. Even though it has caused tension and guilt, I feel like I am helping her in responsible and sustainable ways without putting my own life on hold, but she and some family members view my actions as selfish. I want to support her through this difficult time, while also maintaining boundaries that protect my household and mental health. But I am unsure if standing firm makes me the villain. AITA for confronting my sister over her parenting choices, even though it caused a huge family rift. I'm 32F, and I have a younger sister, 28F, who has a 5-year-old son, Eli. Our family has always been tight-knit, though we have our differences. Growing up, I was the more cautious and thoughtful sibling, while my sister was the free spirit, often making impulsive decisions. Over the years, those differences have caused minor friction, but nothing too serious, until recently. A few months ago, I visited my sister at her house. When I arrived, I noticed some things about Eli that really alarmed me. First, his diet was extremely limited. He mostly ate fast food, sugary snacks, and processed meals. My sister claimed it was because he was picky, but Eli looked malnourished. He was thin, pale, and always seemed tired. When I gently suggested introducing more vegetables and home-cooked meals, my sister dismissed me, saying I was overreacting and that he was perfectly fine. Then there was screen time. Eli was constantly glued to a tablet or TV. I tried to engage him in a board game, but he barely looked at me, insisting he had to finish a level. When I asked my sister how many hours he spent on screens daily, she laughed it off, saying it was his special time, and that I didn't understand modern parenting. I didn't argue further at that moment, because I didn't want to start a fight in front of Eli. The tipping point came a few weeks later during a family gathering. Eli had a minor accident. He tripped over a toy and scraped his knee. Instead of helping him calmly or ensuring he was okay, my sister yelled at him for being clumsy and told him to stop crying because he was embarrassing her. I intervened, telling her that it was okay for a child to get hurt and that scolding him wouldn't help. She snapped at me, calling me judgmental and accusing me of trying to parent her child. My parents, who were present, were visibly uncomfortable, but they didn't intervene much. After that, I started noticing more red flags. Eli rarely played outside. When he did, he was under constant supervision, but never engaged in active games or exercise. He had trouble socializing with other kids and often had emotional outbursts that my sister either ignored or punished harshly. I tried suggesting parenting books, pediatrician advice, and strategies I'd read about or seen work with other children. She consistently refused any suggestions, claiming she knew what was best. One day, I saw Eli eating only a candy bar for lunch while my sister worked from home. I took him aside and tried to talk to him gently about eating more balanced meals. I even offered to make a snack he might like. He looked at me with relief, saying he wanted something different but didn't want to upset his mom. That's when I realized how deeply this was affecting him. I confronted my sister that evening, calmly explaining my concerns about his diet, emotional health, and development. I told her I wasn't trying to control her, but that I genuinely feared for Eli's well-being. She exploded. She accused me of trying to sabotage her parenting and make her feel guilty. She brought up past family conflicts I had no control over, essentially saying that I was using this as another way to manipulate her. I tried to keep my cool, emphasizing that my only goal was Eli's safety and happiness, but she refused to listen. She stormed out and hasn't spoken to me since, except to send a brief text saying that I had crossed a line and that she didn't want me interfering in her family. My parents are torn. They agree Eli could eat healthier and have more structure, but are hesitant to confront my sister, saying it could push her further away. Some family members think I should have backed off and let her parent her child, even if I disagreed. Others agree that I had a responsibility to speak up if I believed a child's welfare was at risk. I haven't contacted my sister since. Eli has texted me a few times via her phone, asking if I'm okay and when I'm coming over. I don't want to undermine my sister or cause a family meltdown, but I also don't want to abandon Eli if he needs support. I've considered reporting to child services, but nothing seems urgent enough to warrant it legally, and I worry that could destroy any chance of reconciliation. I've been sleeping poorly, constantly thinking about whether I did the right thing or overstepped. I love my sister, but I also love Eli and can't shake the feeling that he deserves better than constant sugar, screen time, and scolding for normal childhood mistakes. So, Reddit AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting choices, knowing it would likely cause tension and potentially cut me off from my nephew. I feel trapped between protecting a child and maintaining family relationships, and I'm not sure if I made the right call. AITA for refusing to let my younger sister be a part of my wedding after she accused me of stealing her spotlight. I, 32F, have been planning my wedding for over a year. My fiancé, Mark, 34M, and I have always wanted a fairly traditional wedding with some modern touches. Nothing extravagant, but meaningful to us. My younger sister, Emma, 27F, has always been very dramatic and somewhat competitive with me. But I thought things would be fine on the wedding front because she lives a few hours away, and I assumed she would be happy for me. The first signs of trouble started when I mentioned that I wanted my wedding colors to be a soft blush pink and navy blue. Emma immediately said she loves blush pink and had been planning a blush pink-themed 30th birthday party for herself the next year. I told her the wedding colors weren't about her, they were about me and Mark, and she brushed it off, saying, "Well, it just feels like you're copying me." I laughed nervously and tried to move past it, thinking she was just being dramatic. Things escalated when I started to talk about bridesmaids. I wanted my best friends and a few close cousins as my bridesmaids. Emma, of course, wanted to be a part of it. Normally, I would have no problem with her being a bridesmaid, but she had a habit of making everything about her. She wanted to pick her own dress style and even suggested that we all do the same hair and makeup she liked, rather than what I had in mind. I tried to compromise, but she kept saying, "Why should I wear something I don't like just because it's your wedding?" At this point, my mom intervened, saying that it would be hurtful to Emma if she wasn't included. I agreed to let her be a bridesmaid, thinking that maybe this would smooth things over. But then the real drama started. Emma began to act like she was the main event. She started posting on social media about helping plan my sister's big day, even though I hadn't asked her to help with anything beyond picking a dress. She would make passive-aggressive comments about other bridesmaids' choices like, "I guess that dress is okay, but it's not really flattering like mine would be." She also made comments to me about how the wedding should be centered around the sister of the bride, which I found ridiculous and uncomfortable. 2 months before the wedding, Emma sat me down and said she was uncomfortable being a bridesmaid because she couldn't be the center of attention. She told me she didn't want to be in photos with the other bridesmaids because it would make me look like just one of many, not special. I tried to explain that this wasn't her wedding and she needed to support me, but she said I was stealing her moment and refused to wear the dress. I told her that if she didn't want to be a bridesmaid, she didn't have to be, but she could still attend as a guest. She reacted very negatively, claiming I was cutting her out and that I didn't love her. She also called my mom and tried to get her to convince me to change my mind. My mom sided with me, saying Emma was being unreasonable. The situation worsened at the rehearsal dinner. Emma showed up in a completely different colored dress and announced she was going to sit at a separate table because she didn't want to ruin the aesthetic. She made a scene, bringing up her grievances repeatedly and making it hard for other family members to enjoy the evening. Mark and I eventually decided that we could not have Emma as part of the wedding party. We were worried that her behavior would overshadow the event and cause tension. We spoke with her again, gently explaining that we loved her, but she would not be a bridesmaid if she couldn't support us and be respectful. She responded by sending me a long text saying I was selfish and controlling, and that she didn't want to be around us if we treated her this way. I informed our families about the decision. Most understood, though some distant relatives thought I was being harsh. Emma has since posted on social media implying that I am cutting family out and using my wedding to hurt people, which has caused some tension among extended family members. I still love my sister, but her behavior feels toxic and manipulative. I have tried multiple times to compromise and communicate, but she refuses to see my perspective and insists everything must revolve around her. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister be a part of my wedding after she accused me of stealing her spotlight and consistently acted in ways that threatened to overshadow the day. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she abandoned me. I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 28F. Growing up, our parents were quite strict and emotionally distant, so Emily and I were very close. She was my built-in best friend, and I tried my best to support her in every way possible. Fast forward to adulthood, and while our relationship has always been loving, it's had its fair share of drama, mostly revolving around responsibility and accountability. About 5 years ago, Emily moved to another state for a job opportunity. It was a big change, and I was happy for her. I visited her a few times, and she seemed genuinely excited to be independent. Around a year after her move, she started struggling financially. She asked for some small loans here and there, which I provided because I wanted to help her out. Over time, though, these loans added up to a significant amount. Every time I tried to bring up repayment or boundaries, she would assure me it was coming soon, but it never did. I've always been financially responsible and careful, so this made me uncomfortable, but I didn't want to ruin our relationship. Fast forward to last year, Emily's job fell through, and she lost her apartment. I had recently bought my own home and had to sign a mortgage, so space was limited, but I offered her a temporary solution. I said she could stay for 2 months while she got back on her feet. She moved in, and at first, things seemed fine. But almost immediately, old patterns resurfaced. She barely contributed financially, constantly borrowed money for essential needs that she didn't actually cover, and spent most of her time either at home on her phone or going out with friends she met online. I tried to set some boundaries, like asking her to help with groceries and household chores. She promised she would, but I soon realized she wasn't taking it seriously. She would avoid cleaning, complain about my cooking, and somehow always needed more money. I felt like I was being taken advantage of, but I kept reminding myself that she was family, and people can have rough patches. Still, I started getting more and more frustrated. By the end of the 2 months, I felt completely drained. I confronted her about repayment and boundaries. I told her that while I wanted to support her emotionally, I could not continue to support her financially or let her freeload in my home. She reacted extremely defensively, accusing me of being heartless, unloving, and cruel. I reminded her that she had been given a clear timeline and that she had other options like staying with friends or looking for a cheaper apartment. She argued that she didn't want to burden anyone else and that I was the only one who understood her, trying to guilt me into letting her stay longer. I stood firm, and she ended up leaving after 3 months, leaving some of her belongings behind that I had to deal with later. Now, a year later, Emily has reached out again, asking if she can move back in. She claims that she has nowhere else to go and that her life is falling apart, and she really needs a safe space. I know she's struggling mentally and emotionally, but I also know her history. I can't shake the memories of the last time she stayed here. She never respected my boundaries, drained my finances, and disrupted my life. I also worry that if I let her back in, it will set a precedent, and she may take advantage of me again. I told her that I couldn't offer her a place to live because of everything that happened before. She became very upset and tried to manipulate me emotionally, saying I was the only person who loved her and that everyone else had abandoned her. She brought up our childhood, saying I should be more supportive and remember how she always relied on me when no one else did. I tried to explain that supporting her doesn't mean I have to sacrifice my stability or let her repeat harmful patterns. She hasn't spoken to me since, and my parents are now subtly blaming me for not helping her. They say I should be more understanding and that Emily has a mental health crisis. I do care about her well-being, but I also believe that repeatedly letting someone take advantage of you isn't helpful for either party. I've considered offering alternative support, like helping her find resources, connecting her with local programs, or giving advice on budgeting, but not letting her live here again. I've talked to some friends about this, and they say I'm right to set boundaries and that her behavior shows she's not ready for full independence. Others say family should help each other in crisis, even if it's inconvenient. I feel torn because I do want to help her, but I also know that letting her move back and could harm both of us. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she abandoned me, disrespected my boundaries, and took advantage of my generosity before. I want to support her without jeopardizing my own stability, but now I'm worried I'm being too harsh and unsympathetic. I just need perspective on whether I'm being a good sister by setting these boundaries or a bad one by not letting her back in. AITA for refusing to let my sister and her children move in after she lost her job and apartment. I, 38F, have a younger sister, Emily, 33F, who has always been a little impulsive and has struggled with money management over the years. Growing up, she was the adventurous, carefree sibling, and I was the responsible, planning-oriented one. Despite our differences, we've always been close, and I've tried to support her when she's in need. I have a stable life now, a full-time job, a mortgage on a 3-bedroom house, and a quiet, organized household. I budget carefully, save for emergencies, and make deliberate decisions to avoid financial stress. About 2 months ago, Emily was laid off from her job at a local marketing firm. Around the same time, she also fell behind on rent and was evicted from her apartment. She called me in a panic, saying she had nowhere to go and asking if she could move in with me temporarily until she could get back on her feet. I was sympathetic because I knew she was in a difficult spot, but I immediately realized that letting her move in with her 2 children, Olivia, 7F, and Max, 5M, would be extremely challenging. My house is modest, a 3-bedroom home where I use the 3rd room as a home office and storage. My routine is structured, and my work requires a quiet environment. I also have a cat, and I was concerned about how she would adjust to children living here full-time. Adding 3 people to the household, even temporarily, would drastically disrupt my daily routine, space, and mental well-being. I explained this to Emily, telling her that while I wanted to help, my home was not a viable option. Instead, I offered alternatives. I suggested helping her find a short-term rental, contributing to an Airbnb, helping her apply for housing assistance programs, assisting with job applications, and providing some financial support for necessities. I made it clear that I wanted to support her, but I could not accommodate her and the kids under my roof. Emily reacted badly. She insisted that living with me was the only solution and promised that it would only be temporary, a month or 2 at most. She argued that friends were unavailable and that other family members could not or would not help her. She said that a real sister would do whatever it takes to help family in need and implied that I was being selfish. I tried to explain that my refusal was not about not caring, but about the practical implications of having her and the children live here. I emphasized that living together under stressful circumstances could strain our relationship, disrupt my household, and potentially create tension between us long-term. Over the next week, Emily continued to pressure me. She called multiple times a day, sometimes at work, sending long texts about her situation and implying that I was making things worse by refusing to let them stay. She also guilt-tripped me, saying that family should always help each other and that refusing was turning my back on her and the kids. I tried to stay calm and repeatedly reminded her of the alternatives I was offering, but she dismissed them all as insufficient. The situation began affecting my mental health. I was anxious whenever my phone rang, stressed at the thought of her and the children moving in, and worried that agreeing would compromise my routines and space. I knew that even if she promised it would be temporary, it could easily extend indefinitely because she had no stable income, mounting debt, and young children who needed constant care. Family members have weighed in as well. Some told me I should just make the sacrifice because family comes first, while others agreed that my concerns were valid and that allowing her to move in could create long-term stress and conflict. I feel guilty because I love Emily and want to support her, but I also feel strongly that setting boundaries is necessary. Eventually, Emily found a friend who agreed to let her stay temporarily, but she still reaches out constantly for advice, emotional support, and financial guidance. I continue to help her in those ways, but she has made it clear she is disappointed I would not let them live with me. I worry that my refusal has damaged our relationship, even though I have tried to support her in all other ways. I am stuck between wanting to help my sister and her children and needing to protect my home, routines, and mental health. Allowing her to move in would create stress, potential conflict, and strain on my household that I'm not willing to risk. I feel that I've tried to compromise by offering alternative support, but Emily and some family members interpret this as selfishness or lack of compassion. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister and her children move in after she lost her job and apartment, even though she sees it as abandonment. I want to support her through this difficult time while maintaining boundaries that protect my household and mental well-being, but I am unsure if standing firm makes me the villain. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did to me over a trivial issue. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emma, 25F, and while we used to be close growing up, our relationship has always been a bit competitive. Our parents have always favored keeping the peace, which usually meant smoothing over conflicts rather than addressing them, and that has sometimes allowed tension to build quietly between us. I've always been the more introverted, career-focused sibling, whereas Emma has always been more social and outgoing. Over the years, this dynamic has sometimes caused clashes, but nothing too extreme until now. Emma got engaged about a year ago, and from the beginning, I tried to be supportive. I helped her research venues, gave her advice on catering and decorations, and even helped with the seating arrangements, despite my busy schedule. I genuinely wanted her to have a great day because weddings can be stressful, and I know what it's like to feel unsupported. I have been working a demanding job as a software engineer, so I could only help remotely most of the time, but I made the effort whenever I could. Things started to go wrong when she sent me a mandatory list of things I had to do as her maid of honor. This included organizing the bridal shower, making a speech, coordinating with the wedding planner, and even handling a VIP guest list for her extended family. Normally, I'm not one to back out of responsibilities, but her list was extensive and included tasks she could easily handle herself or delegate to her friends or other family members. I tried to negotiate, suggesting she assign some of the responsibilities to others or at least reduce my workload, but she refused and said I had chosen to be her maid of honor, so it's non-negotiable. The real breaking point came about 3 months before the wedding. I had planned a short vacation with my partner, which we had booked months in advance. It overlapped with the time she wanted me to coordinate her final dress fittings and some last-minute wedding tasks. I explained the situation and asked if it would be possible to adjust the schedule slightly or have someone else cover the tasks. Emma refused outright, insisting that nothing is more important than my wedding and that I had a moral obligation to put her first. I offered to handle what I could before leaving and to be available remotely, but she claimed that wasn't good enough. I was frustrated, but I still tried to find a compromise. I suggested paying for a professional wedding coordinator to handle the last-minute tasks I couldn't attend to. She said no, she didn't want anyone else involved and implied that if I didn't drop my plans, I wasn't truly supportive. I felt trapped because she was essentially saying I couldn't have a life outside of her wedding. Things escalated further when I discovered she had been telling our family that I was unreliable and selfish for even considering being away during my vacation. This was particularly upsetting because I had spent months helping her and genuinely wanted her wedding to be perfect. I confronted her about it, and instead of apologizing, she accused me of overreacting and said I was being dramatic. About a month before the wedding, I told her clearly that I would not be able to attend in person due to my work commitments and prior plans, but that I would support her in other ways, including sending a generous gift and helping remotely as much as possible. Emma completely lost it. She yelled at me over the phone, saying that I had ruined her life and that no gift or remote help would make up for my absence. She also threatened to not invite me to the rehearsal dinner or any pre-wedding events. I told her that while I understood she was upset, I couldn't cancel my plans or compromise my own well-being for something that was ultimately supposed to be her celebration. Since then, my parents have been pressuring me to attend, saying I need to put family first and support my sister on her special day. They keep telling me that Emma will be heartbroken and that it's my responsibility to make her happy. I've tried explaining that supporting someone doesn't mean sacrificing my entire life for them, especially when she's treating me unfairly and demanding things that aren't reasonable. My partner also thinks I'm justified in setting boundaries and not giving in to emotional blackmail. Now, there's a lot of tension in the family. Emma has made public posts on social media complaining about my absence, painting me as the villain, and our extended family has been reaching out, some siding with her, some with me. My parents are upset that the situation has gotten so messy. I feel guilty that I'm being portrayed as the bad sister, but I also feel like if I attend under these circumstances, I will be validating her behavior and setting a precedent that my time and boundaries don't matter. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of the unreasonable demand she made and her reaction to me setting boundaries? I've tried everything I could think of to compromise, but she has escalated it to the point where attending the wedding feels like enabling emotional manipulation. I want to maintain a relationship with her long term, but I also feel like I have to stand my ground. Has anyone been in a similar situation where family expectations and personal boundaries clashed so severely? I don't want to completely cut ties, but I also don't want to be guilted into attending something I'm uncomfortable with. AITA for refusing to invite my brother to my wedding after what happened at my engagement party. I, 28F, am getting married to my fiancée, Alex, 30M, in a few months. We've been together for 6 years, and despite some ups and downs, we're really happy. I've been planning the wedding for over a year, and it's been stressful but also exciting. My parents have been helping financially, and I've been making all the arrangements from the venue to the guest list to the flowers and the catering. Everything has been going as planned until recently, when my brother, Sam, 32M, caused a huge scene at my engagement party. Sam has always been a bit of a drama magnet, but we've tried to overlook his antics because family is family. At the engagement party, which was at our parents' house and had about 50 guests, he got drunk very early. I had made sure there were plenty of drinks, but he started taking shots of tequila straight from the bottle, even after Alex asked him to slow down. I thought he would just sit quietly after a while, but instead, he started making inappropriate jokes about my fiancée and our relationship. He mocked Alex's job, which is in finance, by calling him a boring money guy who couldn't plan a fun party if his life depended on it. And then he started joking about our future marriage, saying things like, "Good luck surviving a lifetime with a guy who calculates your Netflix budget." People laughed awkwardly at first, thinking he was just joking, but it quickly escalated. Then, Sam made a comment about my family's financial contributions to the wedding. He said loudly, "Wow, this is nice, but I guess when you're paying your parents money, you can't really invite who you want, huh?" I tried to redirect the conversation and laugh it off, but he wouldn't stop. He started bringing up past family arguments, including fights about inheritance, and even mentioned that he didn't approve of Alex because he was too ordinary. I felt humiliated. My friends were uncomfortable, and I could see Alex getting upset, which made me even more anxious. Things reached a breaking point when Sam grabbed the microphone during the toast and gave a roast speech that included personal insults about me and Alex. He said things like, "My sister has finally found someone willing to put up with her nonsense," and "Alex, hope you're ready for a lifetime of passive-aggressive comments and therapy bills." I was mortified. I asked him to give a microphone back, but he refused until my father intervened. After that, he stormed out, muttering about how this family is too uptight and that he wasn't going to attend a wedding that follows some boring script. After the party, my parents and I discussed what happened. They were disappointed, but didn't blame me for his behavior. I sent Sam a message the next day, saying that his behavior was unacceptable and that if he wanted to be part of our lives, he needed to apologize. He responded with a long rant about how I was overreacting, how he just spoke the truth, and how Alex couldn't handle a little joke. He refused to apologize. Now, I am at the stage where the wedding guest list is almost final. I have a clear vision of how I want the day to go, and the last thing I want is drama or tension. I spoke to Alex about it, and he completely agrees that having Sam there would likely ruin the day. My parents, however, are split. My mother thinks I should invite him despite the engagement party, saying it would keep the family together and that he's my brother, but my father is on my side, saying that Sam needs to learn some boundaries and that his presence could make the wedding stressful for everyone. I decided not to invite Sam to the wedding. I sent him a polite but firm message explaining that because of his behavior at the engagement party and his refusal to apologize, he won't be invited. I told him I hope he can understand that this decision was made to protect the happiness of the day, and that if he wants a relationship with me and Alex in the future, he'll need to acknowledge what happened. His response was predictably negative. He called me controlling, said that I was punishing him for being honest, and claimed that I was choosing Alex over family. He also threatened not to speak to my parents if they continue supporting me. I haven't spoken to him since. My parents are trying to mediate, but I feel like I'm being reasonable. I don't want to compromise my wedding day for someone who has repeatedly shown disrespect and refuses to acknowledge it. Some of my friends have told me I'm absolutely in the right for prioritizing my own wedding happiness and not letting Sam ruin it, while others are saying I should at least invite him and deal with it for the sake of family harmony. I know weddings are supposed to be joyful, but I also know from experience that having Sam around is likely to turn it into a stressful event rather than a celebration. So, AITA for refusing to invite my brother to my wedding after his behavior at my engagement party. I feel guilty at times because he is my brother and family is important, but I also feel like boundaries are necessary. And this is a special day for me and Alex. I want to hear your thoughts. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for not attending my sister's wedding because of a long-standing family feud. I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my family, but things escalated a few years ago, and I haven't been able to reconcile fully. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, got engaged last year, and the news immediately triggered a lot of tension. Emily has always been the golden child in our family, smart, outgoing, and charismatic, and I've always felt somewhat invisible compared to her. Our parents tend to praise her in ways that made me feel like my achievements never mattered, and I finally reached a breaking point after a particularly rough holiday season 3 years ago. During that holiday, a minor disagreement over who would host Christmas spiraled into a massive argument that involved years of pent-up resentment. Words were said that I deeply regret, and since then, my parents have mostly excluded me from family events, claiming I'm too sensitive and that I overreact. Emily, caught in the middle, tried to mediate initially, but eventually she chose to side with my parents. I respected her choice but told her I needed distance. Fast forward to last summer, Emily got engaged. She called me to tell me the news, and I was genuinely happy for her. I congratulated her, but she could tell I wasn't overly enthusiastic. I explained that I was still hurt over how things had ended during that holiday fight, and I wasn't ready to be a part of the planning or festivities. Emily initially said she understood, but over time, her messages started to turn more insistent. She would ask if I liked to help choose dresses, venues, and themes. I politely declined, explaining that I wasn't emotionally prepared. She became increasingly upset, claiming that I was sabotaging her happiness and that family should come together for milestones like this. Her fiancé, Josh, 30M, also got involved at some point, insisting that I needed to get over past issues because Emily deserved a full family presence at her wedding. I tried to be polite and told them I needed more time. My parents weighed in too, sending messages that were a mix of guilt-tripping and subtle insults, implying that my absence would reflect poorly on me as a sister and daughter. It felt suffocating, and I realized that attending under these conditions would compromise my emotional well-being. About 3 months before the wedding, Emily sent a formal invitation. I thought about it for days, debating whether I could somehow manage to go without causing a scene. In the end, I wrote her a long letter explaining that while I loved her and wanted to celebrate her happiness and spirit, I could not attend due to unresolved feelings and past wounds. I offered to take her out for lunch or coffee after the wedding to celebrate privately if she wanted, but I made it clear that showing up at the wedding itself was not something I could do. The response I received from Emily and my parents was devastating. Emily texted that she was heartbroken and accused me of choosing anger over family. My parents sent a group message calling me selfish, manipulative, and accusing me of creating unnecessary drama. They also made a point of reminding me that all of Emily's friends and extended family would be there, painting me as the antagonist in the story. Some distant relatives even sent messages implying that if I truly cared about family, I would put aside my feelings for one day. I've tried to explain that my absence doesn't mean I don't care about Emily, but every attempt seems to escalate the situation. Some friends have told me that family dynamics are complicated and that I should try to attend, but I also feel that my mental health matters. I can't help but feel that my parents and Emily are using guilt as a weapon to force me into something I'm not ready for. To complicate things further, my younger brother, Alex, 25M, reached out to me separately. He's generally more neutral and hasn't taken sides in the past. He said he understands why I'm hesitant and that he supports my decision to step back. However, he also warned me that family gossip is already framing me as the villain sister and that my absence will likely cause long-term tension. I feel stuck because I genuinely want my sister to be happy and don't want to make her wedding about old conflicts, but I also can't ignore the emotional toll attending would take. I've tried to set boundaries, but the more I assert them, the more my family pushes back, framing my actions as selfishness rather than self-care. I'm now receiving mixed advice from friends, coworkers, and even some distant relatives. Some say I should go for Emily's sake, even if it's uncomfortable, while others say I'm right to protect my mental health and that attending would only cause more harm. I keep thinking about the actual day, being surrounded by a family that has criticized me and tried to guilt me for months, and it fills me with anxiety. I know Emily is likely to be hurt regardless of what I do. I'm also aware that my parents' response could make future interactions even more strained, but I can't shake the feeling that showing up just to placate them would be dishonest to myself. I keep replaying the holiday fight and the months of messages that followed, and I realize that my absence is as much about self-preservation as it is about refusing to accept unfair treatment. I did try to compromise. I offered to contribute in non-attendance ways, helping with digital invites, sending a gift, and even writing a personal note for the wedding ceremony. But all of these gestures were dismissed as not enough or too impersonal. It seems that my family and Emily equate presence at the event with love and loyalty, and anything short of that is seen as rejection. As the wedding date approaches, I feel increasingly torn. I love my sister, I want her happiness, and I hope someday we can repair our relationship. But I also know that attending the wedding would feel like a betrayal to my own feelings. I've accepted that this may permanently alter my relationship with my parents and Emily, and I've started preparing myself for that possibility. So, Reddit AITA for not attending my sister's wedding because of a long-standing family feud and my own emotional boundaries? I know it hurts her, but I can't compromise my mental health for a day, even one as important as her wedding. I'm open to hearing perspectives on whether I've handled this poorly or if standing my ground is reasonable under these circumstances. AITA for refusing to let my brother move in after he lost his job and apartment? I, 35M, have a younger brother, Jason, 30M, who has always struggled with responsibility and planning ahead. Growing up, he was carefree and often reckless, while I've always been methodical and careful with finances. Over the years, I've helped him out when needed, loaning him small amounts of money, letting him crash on my couch for a night or two, and giving advice about budgeting, but I've always had to set boundaries because he tends to take advantage of generosity when it's open-ended. About a month ago, Jason lost his job. He had been working at a small tech startup that shut down suddenly. Shortly after, he got an eviction notice because he had fallen behind on rent. In a panic, he called me, asking if he could move in temporarily while he figured things out. At first, I felt sympathetic, knowing that losing both a job and an apartment at the same time would be overwhelming. However, I also realized immediately that having him move in would create significant logistical and financial strain. I live in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in the city, With a small budget and a work-from-home setup, my space is limited, and my routine is carefully structured. Adding another adult, even temporarily, would disrupt everything. I told Jason that I could not let him move in permanently, but I offered other ways to help. I suggested assisting him in finding a short-term rental or sublet, contributing to temporary housing like an Airbnb, helping him search for jobs, and lending a modest amount for a security deposit on a smaller apartment. I stressed that I wanted to help him, but my home was not an option. Jason did not take this well. He insisted that living with me was the only solution and claimed it would be just a couple of weeks until he got back on his feet. He argued that I was being selfish and that a real brother would help in a crisis. He said I was prioritizing my comfort and convenience over family, and even suggested that my refusal meant I didn't care about him. I tried to calmly explain that my decision was about practicality, not lack of concern. I reminded him that I was already offering multiple forms of support that didn't involve moving in, but he dismissed these options as inadequate. Over the next week, the pressure escalated. Jason called multiple times per day, sometimes while I was working, and even showed up unannounced at my apartment once, claiming he had no other options. He started sending long texts detailing how dire his situation was and repeatedly implied that I could make things easier by letting him stay with me. I kept reiterating that moving in was not possible and that I was committed to helping him in other ways. He accused me of turning my back on him and insisted that family obligations should take precedence over personal convenience. The situation began to affect my mental health. I started feeling anxious every time my phone rang, and I worried about the tension and conflict that could arise if I allowed him to move in. I knew that even if he promised a short stay, it could easily extend because he had no stable income, mounting debts, and no other place to go. I want to help him succeed, but I also need to maintain my own space, routines, and financial stability. Family members have become involved as well. Some say I should just help him out because he's my brother, while others agree that my concerns are valid and that having him live with me could create long-term stress, strain our relationship, and disrupt my life. The mixed feedback has left me feeling guilty, even though I know that setting boundaries is necessary and reasonable. Eventually, Jason found a friend willing to let him stay temporarily, but he continues to message me frequently, venting about his difficulties and implying that I could have done more. I continue to assist with job applications, offer financial guidance, and provide emotional support, but he seems dissatisfied with anything that does not involve living with me. I feel caught between wanting to help my brother and needing to protect my household and mental health. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother move in after losing his job and apartment. Even though it has caused tension and guilt, I feel like I am supporting him in ways that are responsible, sustainable, and safe for both of us. But he and some family members perceive my actions as selfish. I want to maintain our relationship and help him through this difficult time, but I also need to set boundaries to protect my own life. And I am unsure if standing firm makes me the villain. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay at my house during the holidays. So, this has been building up for a few years now, and I finally reached a breaking point this past holiday season. My sister, Emma, and I have always been close. We grew up in a small town, went to the same schools, and shared a lot of the same friends growing up. I moved out after college for work and ended up in a nearby city, while she stayed in her hometown. Over the years, we've kept in touch regularly, and I have always tried to maintain a good relationship with her partners. Well, most of them. Emma started dating Ryan about 2 years ago. From the beginning, I noticed some red flags. Ryan is charming and funny in social settings, but he can be very manipulative and dismissive behind closed doors. At first, I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt because I wanted my sister to be happy, and honestly, she seemed smitten. But over time, the issues became harder to ignore. Ryan has a habit of taking over conversations, belittling people jokingly in a way that doesn't feel like a joke, and has a pretty entitled attitude when it comes to other people's time and resources. My sister often laughs it off or says, "That's just his sense of humor." But I started to notice that she was increasingly stressed after spending time with him, even if she didn't admit it. Fast forward to the holiday season last year. I had invited Emma and her boyfriend to my home for Christmas. I live in a modest two-bedroom apartment with my partner, Alex, and our two cats. I made it clear from the beginning that the space is small, so I could host maybe one or two guests comfortably. Emma insisted Ryan would be fine staying with us. I hesitated, but didn't outright refuse at the time, mostly to avoid a confrontation. The holidays arrived, and as soon as Ryan got into the apartment, things started to go downhill. He immediately began rearranging things, complaining that the furniture was wrong for the space, and asking intrusive questions about our finances and routines. My partner and I tried to be polite, but it quickly became exhausting. He monopolized the TV, criticized the meals I had prepared, and even suggested that I should change the decorations because it would be more aesthetically pleasing. My patience wore thin, but I didn't want to ruin my sister's holiday experience. By the second night, Ryan had taken over my small kitchen, leaving a mess and expecting us to clean up after him. When Alex politely asked him to help, he laughed it off and said, "Come on, I'm on vacation too. I'm not your assistant." That was the tipping point. I calmly asked Emma if we could talk privately. I explained that while I love having her over, Ryan's behavior was making it impossible for me to enjoy my own home and the holidays. I asked if she could consider alternate accommodations for him, like a nearby Airbnb or a hotel. Emma was furious. She accused me of being unreasonable and controlling, and said I was putting her in an impossible position. She insisted that since I invited them, it was my responsibility to host both of them. I tried to explain that hosting one guest in a small apartment is already challenging, and adding Ryan's behavior into the mix made it unmanageable. She left the conversation without resolving anything. The next day, Ryan continued to act entitled, so I finally told him directly that he would not be staying for the rest of the holiday. He was shocked and angry, claiming that I was humiliating him in front of my sister. Emma stormed out of the apartment to call a cab for him, and the rest of the day was tense and silent. We ended up celebrating a muted version of Christmas without her or Ryan, and it was the most stressful holiday I've had in years. Since then, Emma has been cold and distant toward me. She posts on social media about how families should support each other and subtly implies that I'm selfish. Mutual friends have told me that she sees me as the villain in this situation. My partner and I have discussed it extensively, and I feel confident that setting boundaries in my own home was necessary, but I can't shake the guilt that I may have overreacted. I didn't tell her in advance that he wouldn't be welcome because I knew she would pressure me, and I wanted to avoid an argument in front of him. I should also add that my partner supports me fully and believes that our home is our sanctuary, and we have the right to decide who stays here. Alex has even said that Ryan's behavior in general seems toxic and that hosting him would have caused unnecessary conflict. Now, a few months later, Emma has barely spoken to me except for short texts. I've tried reaching out to explain my side calmly, but she either ignores the messages or responds defensively. I know this is causing a rift in our relationship, and I'm torn. I love my sister and want to maintain our bond, but I also feel that prioritizing my own well-being and protecting my home was the right thing to do. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay at my apartment during the holidays, even though it caused a major conflict with her. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding rehearsal dinner after she publicly insulted my fiancé at my own engagement party. So, this is going to be long, and I appreciate anyone reading all the way through. I, 28F, have been with my fiancé, Mark, 30M, for about 3 years. We've had a mostly happy relationship, and our families are generally supportive, though there's some underlying tension with my older sister, Emily, 32F. She's always been a bit competitive, and I've noticed it mostly comes out in subtle digs, but sometimes it's more blatant. About a month ago, I got engaged to Mark. I was beyond thrilled, and naturally, we decided to throw a small engagement party with close friends and family. Everything seemed to be going well until Emily arrived. At first, she was normal, congratulating us, chatting with relatives. But then, after a few drinks, she started commenting on Mark in a negative way. She said things like, "Are you sure you want to marry him? He seemed a little boring." Later, she joked about his job and even mocked his wardrobe, implying he wasn't good enough for me. People were uncomfortable, and Mar tried to laugh it off, but I was mortified. I asked Emily privately to stop, but she shrugged it off, saying, "I was just joking, lighten up." Fast forward to planning her wedding. Emily is marrying a guy named Chris, 33M, and the wedding is in 6 months. She's asked me to host the rehearsal dinner at my house. Normally, I'd be happy to help, but this time I hesitated. I still remember the engagement party incident and wasn't thrilled about hosting her and her new husband in my space after what happened. I voiced my hesitation to my parents, who were surprised I was refusing. They said, "It's just a dinner. Don't make a big deal out of it." But I felt it was about more than the dinner. I didn't want to invite her to my house after she had publicly humiliated my fiancé. I told Emily that I didn't feel comfortable hosting the rehearsal dinner and that she should consider a restaurant or another venue. She immediately flipped out. She started texting me that I was being petty, selfish, and dramatic, and accused me of holding a grudge. She said, "I can't believe you would treat your own sister like this. Hosting my rehearsal dinner is the least you could do after all I've done for you." I was confused because, in my mind, she hadn't done anything positive to deserve hosting at my house. Things escalated when she posted on Instagram a vague story that read, "Some people care more about grudges than family." Sad. My parents called me, upset that I was starting drama, and said I should apologize. I tried explaining the engagement party incident to them, but they brushed it off, saying that was a small misunderstanding. "You're overreacting." I haven't changed my mind, but now my fiancé is annoyed because he feels uncomfortable about the situation and doesn't want to see Emily at all before the wedding. I understand this is affecting my family, but I feel like hosting her after she insulted Mark would be disrespectful to him. I also worry that if I let her come, she might make more comments or try to stir tension. Emily has now started sending messages to mutual friends, framing me as the villain who refuses to help family, and some of our friends have asked me why I'm being so cold. I explained the situation privately to a few, and they seem to understand, but I feel like the narrative is out of my control. I'm honestly at a loss. I want to support my sister, but I also don't want to put myself or Mark in a position where we might be disrespected in our own home. I feel like my parents are pressuring me to apologize just to avoid conflict, which doesn't sit right with me. I've considered trying a neutral location for the rehearsal dinner to compromise, but I still feel frustrated that Emily can't even acknowledge how hurtful she was at the engagement party. So, AITA for refusing to host. My sister's rehearsal dinner at my house after she insulted my fiancé at my engagement party? I feel like standing my ground is justified, but everyone around me is acting like I'm overreacting and making her the victim. I just don't want to have to deal with her negativity in my own space. And I also don't want to apologize for something I don't believe was my fault. I'm torn between family loyalty and protecting my fiancé and my home. I've thought about offering to help in other ways, like contributing financially to a venue or helping with decorations. But Emily hasn't responded to anything like that and seems intent on framing me as the bad person. I'm open to ideas, but I also want to know if I'm genuinely being unreasonable here, or if my instincts to protect my space and my fiancé are valid. Has anyone been in a situation where a sibling publicly insulted your partner and then expected you to host part of their wedding? How did you navigate it without escalating drama further? Because at this point, I feel like no matter what I do, I'm being painted as the villain, and it's exhausting. I just want a peaceful way to handle this without giving in to unfair treatment. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what happened at our family reunion. I, 32F, have always been close to my sister, Emily, 30F, until recently. Our relationship has had its ups and downs, but we used to be best friends growing up. I consider myself someone who is fairly reasonable and family-oriented, but what happened over the past few months has completely changed my perspective on our relationship. It all started at our annual family reunion a few months ago. I live in another state, so I usually make a big effort to travel home for these events. My sister, Emily, had been in a very stressful period at work and dealing with her relationship with her fiancé, Jason, 33M. I thought it would be nice to spend time together and try to help her relax. I arrived a day early to help set things up and to catch up with her. I noticed immediately that Emily was acting stressed, but I assumed it was just wedding planning anxiety. The reunion started well enough. We were all talking, playing games, and enjoying dinner. Emily was busy coordinating things, and I tried to be helpful. At one point, she asked me to handle a few tasks like organizing the table arrangements and making sure some of the decorations were in place. I agreed, although I was already feeling tired from the travel. I made sure everything was done according to her specifications, double-checking every detail. During dinner, Jason made toast. At first, it seemed innocent, but then he began to joke about Emily's family, particularly me. He referenced a few things I had said in private conversations with Emily in the past, including some comments about our parents and their outdated rules. The jokes weren't cruel, but they were very personal and made me uncomfortable. Emily laughed along, clearly entertained by his humor, and I tried to laugh it off as well, although it was hard. After the toast, I quietly told Emily that I didn't appreciate those jokes. I explained that the things Jason mentioned were private, and sharing them in front of the entire family felt humiliating. Emily's response shocked me. She said I was too sensitive and shouldn't take it personally. I was taken aback because I had always assumed my sister would have my back in situations like this. I left the dinner early, feeling hurt and embarrassed. The next morning, Emily and I had a confrontation. I told her that I felt disrespected and that her laughter during Jason's jokes made me feel like she was siding with him over me. Emily accused me of overreacting and said that I was ruining the family reunion with my negativity. She claimed that Jason was just being playful and that I should learn to take a joke. I tried to explain that there's a difference between playful teasing and exposing private conversations to an entire room, but she wouldn't hear me. Jason also chimed in, saying that I needed to lighten up and that this isn't about you. I felt completely isolated. After the reunion, I tried to put it behind me, hoping that things would improve as the wedding approached. Emily and Jason sent me the wedding invitation, and at first, I assumed I would attend. But over the next few weeks, I realized that the tension from the reunion hadn't faded. Every time I tried to discuss the incident with Emily or express my feelings, she would dismiss me or make excuses for Jason. I even attempted a family mediation with our parents, but Emily told them I was creating unnecessary drama and that I should just let it go. A few weeks ago, Emily called me to discuss the guest list. During the conversation, she casually mentioned that Jason wanted me to adjust my behavior at the wedding because he didn't want any awkward moments in front of his colleagues. I was stunned. Essentially, she was telling me that I was expected to behave like nothing had happened, smile, and pretend that I was fine being humiliated in front of the family and their friends. I tried to explain that this was not reasonable and that I couldn't. Just ignore what happened. She became defensive and accused me of holding grudges and jeopardizing her special day. She ended the call saying that if I didn't attend, she would be sad, but she would survive. After a lot of thought, I decided to decline the invitation. I sent her a message explaining that I couldn't in good conscience attend a wedding where I felt disrespected and dismissed. I tried to make it clear that this wasn't about the wedding itself, but about my emotional boundaries and my need to be treated with respect. I suggested meeting up with her at a later date to celebrate privately, but she didn't respond to that part. She just texted back that she was disappointed and that she hoped I could forgive and forget. Since then, my parents have been putting pressure on me. They say I'm being dramatic and that I'm letting a misunderstanding ruin a lifelong family event. My friends have been supportive, saying that I'm justified in standing up for myself, but I feel guilty because I know Emily is hurt. I also worry about how this will affect my relationship with the rest of the family, especially during holidays and other gatherings. I keep going back and forth in my mind. On one hand, I don't want to miss my sister's wedding, but on the other hand, I feel like attending would be a betrayal of my own feelings and boundaries. I'm wondering if I'm overreacting by refusing to attend or if it's reasonable to protect myself from further emotional harm. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what happened at our family reunion. AITA for refusing to let my brother-in-law move in after he lost his job and apartment. I, 34F, have been married to my husband, Daniel, 36M, for 8 years. We live in a modest 3-bedroom house in a suburban area with our 2 kids, Mia, 6F, and Lucas, 4M. Daniel has a younger brother, Ryan, 31M, who has always been impulsive and somewhat irresponsible when it comes to money. Over the years, Daniel and I have helped him in different ways, lending him money for emergencies, letting him stay with friends, and giving him advice on managing finances. Despite this, Ryan has repeatedly gotten into situations where he cannot support himself. About 2 months ago, Ryan lost his job. He had been working at a small restaurant for the past year, but it closed suddenly due to financial problems. Around the same time, he also got evicted from his apartment because he had fallen behind on rent. He called Daniel in a panic, explaining that he had nowhere to go and asked if he could move in with us temporarily until he got back on his feet. Daniel initially said he thought it might work for a short period, but I immediately felt uncomfortable. I explained that having Ryan move in would be extremely difficult. Our house is not very large, and adding another adult into our family dynamic would create stress, disrupt routines, and take away personal space. Our kids have a schedule and a home environment that works for them, and I was worried that introducing Ryan into the mix could create tension or instability. I also pointed out that we are not financially positioned to take on another adult indefinitely. I offered alternative ways to help. I told Daniel that I could assist Ryan in finding a short-term rental, contribute toward temporary housing like an Airbnb, help with job applications, and even lend him a small sum for a security deposit. I made it clear that I was willing to support him in ways that didn't involve moving into our home. Ryan did not take this well. He insisted that moving in was the only solution and claimed it would only be temporary, a few weeks at most. He argued that I was being selfish and unsupportive and that families should help each other in times of crisis. He also implied that Daniel and I were putting our comfort ahead of his and accused us of turning our backs on him. I tried to explain that my refusal was not about lacking compassion, but about maintaining boundaries to protect our family and household. I emphasized that moving in could create long-term stress and resentment for everyone involved. Over the next week, Ryan began pressuring us more aggressively. He called several times a day, sometimes showing up unannounced at our door, saying he had nowhere else to go. He repeatedly implied that we were making his situation worse by refusing him and insisted that staying with us was the only realistic option. Daniel and I argued several times over the issue. He felt that I was being too rigid and that helping families should take priority over inconvenience, while I maintained that our household stability and well-being were equally important. The situation began to take a toll on my mental health. I was anxious and stressed every time my phone rang. I knew that even if Ryan promised a short stay, there was a high likelihood it could extend for months because of his lack of savings and the ongoing job search. I wanted to support him, but I also wanted to protect my home, routine, and the well-being of our children. Family members have chimed in as well. Some of Daniel's relatives have told me I should just let Ryan move in because family always comes first. Others agree that my concerns are valid and that having him live with us could create long-term problems. The mixed opinions have made me feel guilty, even though I know that setting boundaries in this situation is reasonable and responsible. Eventually, Ryan found a friend who agreed to let him stay temporarily. However, he continues to reach out frequently, venting about his difficulties and implying that Daniel and I could have done more. I continue to provide advice, help with job applications, and limited financial support, but he seems dissatisfied with anything that doesn't involve living with us. I worry that my refusal has caused tension between me and Ryan, and even between Daniel and me, despite my efforts to support him in other ways. I feel caught between wanting to help my brother-in-law and needing to protect my home, family, and mental health. Allowing him to move in would create stress, strain, and potential conflict that I am not willing to take on. I have tried to compromise by offering alternative forms of support, but Ryan and some family members interpret this as selfishness or lack of care. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother-in-law move in after losing his job and apartment, even though it has caused tension, guilt, and criticism from family. I feel like I am helping him in responsible and sustainable ways without putting my own household at risk, but I am unsure if standing firm makes me the villain. AITA for refusing to invite my sister to my wedding after she caused a major fight with my fiancé and me over our wedding plans. I, 28F, have been with my fiancé, Mark, 30M, for 6 years. We've been planning our wedding for over a year, and everything seemed to be going smoothly until recently when my sister, Lisa, 32F, decided to intervene in ways I never anticipated. I should preface this by saying Lisa and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's very controlling and opinionated, and while I love her, our personalities often clash. Our parents are divorced, and Lisa has always been closer to Mom, while I was closer to Dad. This has created a subtle tension between us that I've learned to navigate carefully. Mark and I decided on a fairly small wedding, around 80 guests. We wanted something intimate and meaningful rather than a massive, traditional ceremony. We booked a small venue, hired a local caterer, and kept our guest list tight. The planning process went fairly smoothly, except for the occasional suggestion from Lisa, which I mostly ignored because it didn't fit our vision. I thought it was just typical sisterly input. The problem started when we finalized our guest list. Lisa noticed that she would only have a handful of friends there and not be in the wedding party. She immediately called me, clearly upset. She said, "I don't understand why I'm not a bridesmaid. This is your sister. It's disrespectful to me." I tried to explain that Mark and I had limited spots, and we wanted our closest friends as bridesmaids, not just family. She didn't take it well. She started sending me messages every day about how she felt excluded and how hurt she was. I tried to be empathetic and explained again, but she continued to push. A week later, she showed up uninvited at a meeting with our caterer, asking questions and offering unsolicited suggestions about the menu. The caterer was confused, and Mark and I were both embarrassed. I politely asked her to let us handle the planning, but she insisted she had a right to be involved because she was my sister. This was the first time I started seriously considering the possibility that she might cause bigger problems closer to the wedding day. Things escalated when we sent out the invitations. Lisa's friends, who were not on the guest list, asked why they hadn't been invited. Lisa called me in tears, saying it was unfair that she couldn't bring everyone she knew. I explained that we simply couldn't accommodate all guests, but she accused me of trying to cut her off from her social circle and of controlling everything. I told her we were following our budget and plans, and that it wasn't personal. She hung up and didn't speak to me for a few days. The breaking point came last month. We were finalizing the seating chart when I realized that Lisa had started messaging some of our guests directly, asking them to sit away from certain people she didn't like. She had also sent some of our mutual friends a private message criticizing our wedding choices, saying she would be judged if she attended. Mark was furious, and I was beyond stressed. We confronted her, asking her to stop interfering and to respect our decisions. She responded by accusing me of trying to erase her from the wedding, and said that if she couldn't have it her way, she might not come at all. After several days of tense discussions, Mark and I made a decision. We realized that Lisa's presence at the wedding would likely cause drama, distract from our day, and make both of us miserable. We discussed the possibility of not inviting her, and decided it was the only way to protect our wedding experience. We notified our parents, who were understandably shocked. Mom was angry and claimed that I was being too harsh and needed to give Lisa a chance. Dad, however, understood our perspective and supported us. We sent Lisa a message explaining that we had decided it would be best for her not to attend the wedding. We tried to phrase it as gently as possible, emphasizing that this decision was to avoid conflict and stress, not because we didn't love her. Lisa reacted exactly as we feared. She exploded on social media, posting vague messages about family betrayal and how she would never forgive me. She called me several times in a row, screaming and crying. I didn't pick up, and Mark blocked her number temporarily because it was affecting his mental health. Since then, Lisa has tried to reach out to our mutual friends, framing the situation in a way that makes me look like the villain. Some friends have asked me why I'm excluding her, and I've explained the circumstances honestly. A few have said they feel I'm overreacting, while others completely understand why we made the decision. The wedding is in 3 weeks, and Mark and I feel relief and anxiety at the same time. Relief because we know the day will be calm and focused on us, anxiety because of the inevitable fallout with Lisa. Our parents are divided, and some extended family members are upset. I keep second-guessing myself, wondering if I should have tried harder to include her or compromise more. I know family drama is complicated, and I hate that it's come to this, but I genuinely feel that inviting her would have turned our wedding into a stressful, confrontational event. I don't want to fight or create tension on what is supposed to be one of the happiest days of our lives. I also feel that my boundaries have been repeatedly ignored, and this is my attempt to enforce them. AITA for refusing to invite my sister to my wedding, knowing it will cause a permanent rift between us. I feel guilty and sad, but also like I might be protecting my own mental health and the sanctity of my wedding day. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in with us after he lost his job. I, 32F, live in a 2-bedroom apartment with my younger sister, Lily, 28F. We've always been very close. We share bills, chores, and sometimes meals together. About 2 months ago, Lily introduced her new boyfriend, Mark, 30M, to me. At first, everything seemed fine. Mark was polite, funny, and charming. I had no issue with him visiting occasionally. The problem started last month when Lily told me that Mark had lost his job unexpectedly and asked if he could stay with us until he got back on his feet. She framed it as a temporary thing, saying it would only be a week or 2 until he found another job. I was hesitant because our apartment is small and my own life is already very busy. I explained that while I wanted to help, our space was limited and I wasn't sure it would be comfortable. Lily got upset. She said that I was being selfish and that families should support each other, especially in tough times. She insisted that Mark wouldn't be a burden and that I was overreacting. I tried to negotiate, suggesting alternatives like helping him find a short-term rental or even helping him financially while he looked for a job, but Lily kept insisting he should stay with us. A week later, Mark came over to visit, and I could immediately tell that he had misunderstood the situation. He started acting as if he were already moving in, asking me where he could put his things and talking about rearranging the living room to accommodate him. I told him politely that we needed to discuss this first and that it wasn't going to work. He got defensive, claiming that he was family now and that I was being cold. I decided to lay down some firm boundaries. I explained that I wasn't comfortable having someone move in permanently or even temporarily without my agreement. Our apartment is my home too, and I need to feel comfortable in my own space. I offered to help him look for a place or to give him a small financial contribution for temporary housing, but I made it clear that staying with us was not an option. Lily exploded. She said that I was choosing her boyfriend over her, that I didn't care about family. She told me that if Mark couldn't stay with us, she might move out with him. I felt like this was manipulative, and I refused to give in. We argued for a long time, and eventually she left, slamming the door. The next few days were tense. Lily didn't speak to me much and started posting passive-aggressive comments on social media about people who can't help their family in need. Mark also sent me a text saying that I was rude and that he didn't understand why I wouldn't help him. I responded politely but firmly, reiterating my boundaries. A mutual friend later told me that Lily had been complaining about me to several people, claiming that I was selfish and that she might cut ties with me over this. I felt hurt because I've always been supportive of her, and I thought she would understand that living with someone unexpectedly is not something I can just agree to. I spoke to another sister-in-law, who said that while I could have been more flexible, I was not wrong to set boundaries in my own home. I also realized that agreeing to have Mark move in would likely cause long-term tension in the apartment, as our space is very limited and we all have different schedules and habits. A week later, Lily returned, still upset, and tried to convince me again that Mark could stay for just a short time. I repeated my position, and she finally left in frustration. Since then, our relationship has been strained. She talks to me less, and I can feel the distance growing. I am now questioning myself, wondering if I should have been more accommodating. I do want to help Mark, but I also feel strongly that I cannot sacrifice my comfort and personal space in my own home. My friends are divided. Some say I am right to protect my space, while others say I should have found a way to make it work temporarily to support my sister. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend move in with us after he lost his job. I feel like I'm just being reasonable about my own boundaries, but the way Lily is reacting makes me wonder if I am truly in the wrong. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.